Under God, 7th edition, updated and revised. William C. Hendricks. Chapter 9, The President Executive Branch. Important ideas to look for. The President is elected by an electoral college system. The office of the President is one of the most powerful in the nation. The President must act for the United States in our relations with other nations. Article 2, Executive Branch, Section 1, President and Vice President. The executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and, together with the Vice President, chosen for the same term, be elected as follows. You will remember that Article 1 contained the rules for the legislative or law-making branch of our government. Now you will study Article 2, which defines the executive branch. The executive branch executes or enforces the laws. Our chief executive is our president, and under him are all the federal law enforcement agencies. Although thousands of people help him, the president has one of the most difficult jobs in the world. He has the responsibility to lead our nation under God. Because the office of president is so important, the men who wrote the Constitution did not think it would be wise to let all the people vote for him. Some of the delegates at the Constitutional Convention thought the president should be elected by the state legislatures. Others thought he should be chosen by the governors of the states. Some thought he should be chosen by lot, and some thought he should be elected by electors, or persons chosen by the people for this purpose. Each state shall appoint, in such manner as the legislative thereof may direct, a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives, to which the state may be entitled in the Congress, but no senator or representative or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. Finally, it was decided to let the legislators, who were probably the ablest men in the state, select several men to serve as electors. These electors were to choose the president. You can tell how many electors your state has by adding the number of your senators, always 2, and the number of your representatives. The electors of all the states together would be called the Electoral College, but they would never meet at a single group. Instead, the electors would meet in their own state capitals. These electors would each vote for 2 men. The votes would be sealed and sent to the United States Senate, where the votes from all the states would be counted. The person receiving the greatest number of votes would be the president. The one with the second highest number would be the vice president. Under this system, it was possible for 2 men to have a tie. In the election of 1800, all the electors of the Democratic Republican Party voted for Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. The votes were equal. The Congress voted 35 times to break the tie before Jefferson was elected president and Burr vice president. Soon after this, the 12th Amendment was passed. Under this amendment, the electors still vote for 2 men, but they had to tell which one they wanted for president and which one they wanted for vice president. The men who drew up the Constitution wanted the Electoral College to pick carefully the best man to be president. The electors used free choice when they voted for George Washington as the first president. This free choice for the electors did not last long. Soon political parties formed. As early as 1830, the political parties began holding conventions every 4 years to choose men as candidates for the offices of president and vice president. Although the electors promise to vote for the candidates selected by their party as the National Convention, they still have the legal right to vote for anyone they feel is best qualified. In 1948, a Democratic elector from the state of Tennessee refused to vote for Harry Truman, the man selected by the Democratic Party Convention as candidate for president. Instead, he voted for James Strom Thurmond, the state's rights candidate. Such action seldom occurs. At the National Convention, a political party also decides upon a party platform or statement of policy, which will serve as a basis for the action if it wins the election. Political parties and national conventions are part of the customs of our government. They are not a part of the Constitution. When a voter casts a ballot in the presidential election, he does not actually vote for the candidate personally. Instead, according to the Constitution, he votes for an elector who has pledged to vote for the candidate that voter has chosen. In every state, each party chooses a slate of electors, as many as there are representatives, plus senators in that state. The candidate who receives the greatest number of popular votes in each state receives all, the total of the electoral votes of that state. The candidate that receives a majority, at least 270 of the 538, of the total electoral votes in the country is elected. Because the electors today almost always vote for the candidates selected by the political party the electors belong to, the electors think that the electoral system should be discontinued. They believe that a popular vote, or a vote directly by the people, would be fairer. The small states, however, would not quickly agree to a change, for they have relatively more power to elect the president under the electoral college system than they would have under a popular vote system. For example, New York has about 44 times as many people as Nevada. Nevada has 3 electoral votes, and New York has 43. Therefore, New York has about 14 times as many electoral votes as Nevada, even though it is 44 times as many people. California has 53 times as many people as Wyoming, yet it has only 13 times as many electoral votes. This is the way that the men who drew up the Constitution planned it to be. They wanted to protect the rights of smaller states against the power of the larger ones. Guarding the rights of the minority is one of the tasks of government, for the majority can be wrong. The Congress may determine the time of choosing the electors and the day on which they shall give their votes, which day shall be the same throughout the United States. Every 4th year, on the Tuesday after the first Monday of November, a presidential election is held. At this time, the electors are chosen. The electors in each state go to their state capitals on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December to cast their votes. The votes are counted by Congress in January. No person except a natural-born citizen, or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution, shall be eligible for the office of President. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident in the United States. The requirements for the office of President and Vice President are the same. They need to be the same in case the Vice President has to be taken the President's place. These requirements are greater than those of the senators and representatives. In case of the removal of the President from office, or of his death, resignation, or inability to discharge the powers and duties of the said office, the same shall devolve on the Vice President. The Congress may, by law, provide for the case of removal, death, resignation, or inability both on the President and Vice President, declaring what officer shall then act as President, and such officer shall act accordingly until the disabled be removed or President shall be elected. If the President dies, resigns, or is unable to carry out his duties, the Vice President must take his place. If both the President and Vice President are unable to serve, Congress must decide who will become President. Congress decided by means of the President Succession Act passed in 1947 that the Vice President is to be followed by the Speaker of the House, the President pro tempore of the Senate, and then the members of the President's Cabinet in order in which the office was established, beginning with the Secretary of State. From your study of American history, you know that the Vice President has had to take over the duties of the President several times in the past. Never have both the President and Vice President died or been unable to serve during any one term of office. But the fact that it could happen was illustrated by an airplane crash in 1947. This tragic accident happened in Oregon when the governor, the Secretary of State, and the President of the Senate, 3 of the state's leaders, were killed at the same time. The President shall, as stated times, receive for his services or compensation, which shall neither be increased nor diminished during the period for which he shall have been elected. He shall not receive within that period any other emolument from the United States or any of them. Until 1873, the President was paid $25,000 per year. In 1873, his pay was raised to $50,000. In 1969, it was raised to $200,000, and in 2001, it was raised to $400,000 along with a $50,000 expense allowance. He lives in the beautiful White House and is given the use of 2 large jet airplanes and a Marine helicopter, as well as smaller airplanes and helicopters if they are needed. A fleet of automobiles is provided for his use as well. An allowance of $120,000 is supplied to cover his travel and entertainment costs. He's provided the best health care available. Although our president's salary seems to be very high, you must remember that he holds the most responsible position in our government. He surely should be paid as much as some industrial leaders, TV comedians, and professional athletes. The president's salary may not be changed while he is in office. He must be paid by the United States Treasury and not receive payment from any state. Before he enters on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath of affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. I will do the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The oath of office is given to the President by the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. The inauguration is held on the east steps of the Capitol building at noon on January 20th, following the November election. As the President repeats the oath, he usually holds his hand on an open Bible at the text that he has selected. It is only a custom for the Chief Justice to give the oath to the President. Actually, any judge, clerk, or notary public who is certified to give an oath to an ordinary citizen can give the oath of office to the President. When Washington took the oath of office, it was administered by Chancellor Livingston of New York. The Chancellor read the oath to him and then asked Washington if he would swear to it. Washington answered, "I swear, so help me God." The practice of adding the words, "so help me God," has been followed by nearly all the presidents. At the time the President makes this solemn promise, he must be very aware of his weaknesses and his need for strength and wisdom from God to lead our nation. After taking the oath of office, the President presents his inaugural address. Section 2. Powers of the President. The President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states when called into the actual service of the United States. The President of the United States holds one of the most powerful positions in the world. Although the veto power is given to him in Article 1, most of his power comes from Section 2 of Article 2. The President is the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. He could lead them personally if he wanted to, but there is no need for it. He's responsible for the armed forces even though he appoints others to lead them. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices. The President may have a cabinet of advisors, but he does not have to follow their advice. Many hundreds of thousands of people help the President carry out or execute the laws of our nation. In 2012, over 114,000 people worked for the Treasury Department. 670,000 worked for the United States Postal Service. 70,000 worked for the Department of the Interior, caring for the public lands, national parks, mines, and conservation agencies. 106,000 worked for the Department of Agriculture. 3.2 million servicemen and women worked for the Defense Department to defend our country. Our President has authority over all who work for the government. He may ask the heads of the departments for a report on their work at any time. And he shall have power to grant reprieve and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. The President may pardon individuals or groups who have been found guilty of breaking the law of the United States. A pardon is an act of grace that says a guilty person is not to be punished for this crime. It must be accepted by the person who is pardoned before it can become effective. In 1915, World War I had already begun in Europe, but the United States had not yet entered the war. A man named Burdick was found guilty of refusing to testify before a grand jury when his loyalty to our country was questioned. When President Wilson gave him a full and unconditioned pardon for all offenses against the United States, Burdick refused the pardon and did not become effective. However, in 1927, the President received the right to change a death sentence to one of a life imprisonment, even if it was against the will of the prisoner. Complete pardon in the world of government depends on the prisoner's acceptance of that pardon. God's pardon to sinners likewise depends upon a sinner's acceptance of God's forgiveness. In a system of pardons, our government is under God. He shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur. When the Constitution was written, the President received power to make treaties with other countries, and the Senate received power to approve or reject these treaties. In this way, the Senate acted as a check on the actions of the President. Treaties made by the President today must still be approved by the Senate in the same way. Since the time that the Constitution was written, however, the number of nations has increased, and our relations with them have grown far more complicated. If we needed to wait for the Senate to pass each agreement made with another nation, our foreign relations would be very limited and would move very slowly. Our president now carries most of our relations with other nations by means of the executive agreement rather than a treaty. Such an agreement drawn up by our president or someone appointed by him does not have to be approved by the Senate. The use of the executive agreement has the advantage of being faster and more direct, since it is usually not checked by the Senate. It greatly increases the power and the responsibility of the executive department. And he shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law, but the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper, in the President alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. Ambassadors and envoys to foreign missions are deployed by the State Department and are responsible to the President through the Secretary of State. People appointed to important offices in government by the President must be approved by the Senate. Appointment of persons in less important offices can be handled by the courts and heads of departments. If the President today had to appoint all government employees himself, he would be much too busy. When Washington became president, he needed to appoint many people to the offices of government. He realized that people who favored the new government would work hardest to see it succeed. He appointed friends of the Constitution. Later, Jefferson appointed members of his own political party to the office that became vacant. This was done with very little ceremony or announcement, and in 1828, Andrew Jackson used Jefferson's plan more broadly. He not only filled vacant government offices with members of his own political party, but also removed many faithful government employees and replaced them with friends who had helped him win the election. During the presidency of Andrew Jackson, Jackson's political enemies began to call his plan of placing the friends of winning candidate into government office the spoils system. This system continued, and many politicians became greedy for the best positions. Finally, in 1881, President Garfield was shot by an angry office seeker who was not given the job that he wanted. Congress then passed the Civil Service Law, which states that most government positions may be filled only after the applicant has successfully passed a civil service test. He may hold this office as long as his work is done well, regardless of the political party he belongs to. The President shall have power to fill all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate, by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their next session. This clause gives the President power to make temporary appointments if the Senate is not in session, to approve them immediately. Section 3. Duties of the President. He shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. When a session of Congress opens in January, the President sends a message telling Congress the state or condition of the country. He also asks them to pass the laws he feels are necessary. In the past, some presidents have sent their State of the Union messages as written letters. Others have read their messages before the combined House of Congress. Because the personal appearance method is more effective, the president today comes to Congress himself, rather than just sending a letter. It has become a media event. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses, or either of them, and in a case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to make such as he shall think proper. Presidents have power to call special sessions of Congress, but have rarely done so. No president has ever called one house into session without the other, nor has the president ever had to decide the date of the adjournment of Congress. Congress has always been able to agree on this itself. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers. The president must treat the leaders of other countries with respect and courtesy. He sometimes personally entertains these foreign officials and shows them points of interest in our country. Because of his busy schedule, however, he usually appoints someone from the State Department to carry out his duties for him. He may also send foreign officials home if he feels their presence is having a harmful effect on the country. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Seeing that the laws are faithfully carried out is one of the president's biggest jobs. The many departments and agencies of the executive branch assist the president with his task. The more than 4 million people employed by these departments and agencies, including the military, are under the control of the president. and shall commission all officers of the United States. When the Constitution was written, this method of commissioning officers was devised to allow the President to control the selection of officers for the armed forces. Today, commissioned officers are usually selected by their branch of service. The certificate of commission must, however, be formally signed by the President. Section 4. Impeachment. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from the office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The power of impeachment ensures that even the most powerful person in the United States can lose his job if he does not do it well. Our President is not called a ruler, he is called a chief executive, which means he must carry out the laws made by the people. Our President, who holds the highest position of government in our land, is still the servant of all. Primarily, however, he is the servant of God, who is, in his providence, placed the President in that office. As our President works to fill the heavy responsibility of his office from day to day, we are commanded that requests, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for everyone, for kings, and all those in authority. 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2.